What's the value of having a fully paid off mortgage in retirement? In fact, should you even own a home at all in retirement? In this video, we're going to get crystal clear about the answer to these two questions, and also we're going to dig deep into why people pay off their home versus carry a mortgage into retirement. The final reason on the list, by the way, is the most compelling of all, and it has nothing to do with money. To be fair to the process, in this video, I'm also going to include a lot of the things that people just gloss over to make the argument work so that we don't deal into what's called Candide syndrome. Candide, by the way, is the name of the main character in the book written by Voltaire of the same name in 1759. Candide believed that they lived in the best of all worlds, no matter what was going on around them. I love this way of thinking, by the way, and we can probably all use more of it, but it's probably also best reserved for decisions that don't involve money. In a tidbit of interesting information, Voltaire is credited with saying, "I may disagree with what you say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it." Let's start off with the two traditional ways that people look at their house. The first is just dollars and cents. It's an economic purchase, and whether you own it or you sell it, whether you mortgage it or you don't, it's all about what the best financial outcome is for you. The second is the invisible family member way of looking at the house. Most people have a bit of both when they think about their house, but people came to this video for the dollars and cents rationale, so we'll start there, and we'll end with the invisible family member at the end. Conventional home wisdom in retirement compares two different models. Model A home with a mortgage payment plus real estate taxes plus home maintenance costs plus utilities, to Model B, a paid-off home with just real estate taxes, maintenance costs, and utilities. And this is where most of these videos end, but I'm also going to introduce an additional variable which messes up the tidy analysis, and that is the option to rent, to sell the home and capture the full value of the home if the mortgage is paid off, or the equity value if it's not paid off, to just simply renting. In fact, some financial experts will tell you that you shouldn't include the value of your home in your net worth because you need to live somewhere, so therefore you can't count on using your home to pay the bills in the future. In fact, you could. You could sell your house, recognize the value of your home, and just rent. I'm not suggesting that, by the way, but there is a very strong rationale for keeping it in your net worth column. So we're going to use current information and make some assumptions. The first is that you can't go back in time and make a different decision about when to buy your house, what type of mortgage to take out. And the second is that you're not likely to liquidate your 401k to pay off your mortgage today in order to have no mortgage in retirement. So this means that the decision of whether your house has a mortgage as you go into retirement or not is going to come down to how fast you can pay it off between now and then. To answer the question about whether you should have a fully paid off mortgage or not, we need to sleuth out a bit of information. Don't worry about writing down what I'm going to give you in a moment, because you can always go back in the video and get it at the end, but it's important that you just focus on the overall picture for the moment. First, we need to know what the average 3-bedroom home price is here in the United States. As of January 2024, Go Banking Rates says that this number is $327,513. We also need to know the average existing interest rate on homes. This is between 3 and 4%, with the tighter end of 3 to 3.5% being most likely, so we'll use 3.25%. And if you were going to sell your home and refinance another home in retirement, you need to know what the new rate is. Again, according to GoBankingRates.com, it's 6.94%. The average home payment on an existing home at 3.25%, assuming 20% down, is $1,140.29 on a 30-year mortgage. That's $13,683.48 per year. The average home payment on a new home with the same variables, 20% down, same purchase price, $1,734 per month. For 12 months, that's $20,808 per year. The average rental payment on a 3-bedroom house, according to World Population Review, is $2,018. That's $24,216 per year. According to Forbes, the average utility cost per month on a 3-bedroom home is $429 a month, or $5,148 per year. The average maintenance cost is assumed to be about 1%, that's $3,275 per year, and the average property tax for a 3-bedroom home is at 1.1%, $3,602 per year. First, why a 3-bedroom home? Well, frankly, it's because that's the average number of bedrooms a house has in the U.S., And the question is whether I should pay off my mortgage or not before going into retirement. So this isn't your retirement home, it's your home. If, however, this is a post-retirement downsized home, the average number is closer to 2, not 3. You would just adjust these numbers accordingly. How did we come up with 3.25%? Well, as I mentioned earlier, interest rates on existing homes skew between 3 and 4%. But if you look at that entire pool of mortgages outstanding, it's about 3.25%. Now, why are we even introducing a rental payment for a 3-bedroom? That's not part of the question here. Well, in order to come up with the answer to whether you should have a fully paid off mortgage or not, you also need to know what your alternative is. And the reason, frankly, is because there are costs associated with a home that you own that you don't have with a rental. And if you own a home, whether it has a mortgage or not, you're going to have to maintain that home. And that's why we have 1%. That 1% number equates to $32.75, and that's for things like an HVAC, it's for a driveway, sidewalks, a roof, those sorts of things. If you're watching this video and it's before February 28, 2025, I have a free gift for you, and that is the Social Security Quick Guide. It's a guide that we put together here, and it's jam-packed with information on one page, so it's very easy to use, and it's absolutely free. All you need to do is go to hollyschmidt.com/quick guide, and you can get your quick guide instantly. The next cost that you have to pay, whether you have a mortgage or not, is property tax. Most property tax bills in this country are somewhere between 1 and 1.5% of the value of the home, with the median or most common being 1.1%. That means for this house, we're talking about $3,602 per year. I will point out that if you are moving to a community with a lot of retirees, your property tax could actually go down because a big portion of property tax involves paying the salaries for teachers, administrators, etc. at schools. Of course, if you move to Palm Beach, Florida, or Palm Springs, California, you probably won't get that tax break. Just saying. Finally, your utility costs won't change at all whether you are owning a house with a mortgage or without a mortgage. And frankly, you'll also have to pay your utilities more than likely if you rent as well. So whether you have a fully paid off house or not, you do have costs that don't go away. That's the maintenance of the house, the utilities on the house, and the real estate taxes on the house. And these tend to go up every year. So in our analysis, we're paying $51.48 plus $32.75 plus $36.08 for a total of $12,025. Now, if you have a mortgage, you need to add on the mortgage to this analysis. So that means your total cost is $25,708 per year. And the difference between having a fully paid off home in retirement and one that's not paid off is just the cash flow, the additional cash flow from the mortgage payment, nothing else. So would you like to have an extra $13,683.48 in pre-tax income in retirement? Well, of course you would. Your situation will be different, of course, but the relationships all will be the same. So here's the final question. What if you sold your home and put it into a reasonably safe investment, say municipal bonds, paying 4%? So you don't pay taxes on that investment, at least not federal taxes, and probably not state taxes either. Would you be better off selling your home and paying rent with the profits from your home, or would you be better off just staying in your home? Let's assume that you decide to sell your home and rent. You paid $327,513 and paid 6% commission and another 1% for staging the home to make it look pretty. That's $22,925.91 in costs. You'd net $304,587.09. That assumes that you would sell it at asking, and it also assumes that you don't negotiate the real estate fee down, which many people do. So it seems like a sensible number because one can go up and one can go down. Your rent is $24,216 per year, and that can go up. At 4% return, you are paying out $12,183. But you also need to add back costs that you're avoiding. Taxes of $3,602, maintenance of $32.75. So this brings your total cost down to $19,060. You're paying rent of $24,516 versus an income from your investments and cost avoided of $19,060. So you are net down just over $5,000. In fact, you're net down $5,156. But a 4% return is quite conservative. Let's assume that you do a little bit better than municipal bonds and you get a 6% return. At 6%, you receive $18,275.22 in returns, and you also still avoid taxes of $3602 and maintenance of the home of $3275. This gives you a total of $25,152.23, which means that you have a gain by renting versus owning, at least this year. That gain is $25,152.23 minus the rent of $24,216, so you gain $936.23. This also assumes that the 6% return is also tax-free. That is a little bit harder to achieve. It can be achieved, but it is a little bit harder to achieve. A lot of that depends on your personal income. Now here's where things get really tricky. Some people will actually use stock market returns in this analysis, and that's not the right way to look at it, in my humble opinion. Let me explain. They'll use an 8 or 9% return, which historically seems to be about the right return for an index fund if you go back far enough. But the problem is you can't spend that 8% return. You can spend the dividends, and you can use the dividends to pay your rent, but in order for you to actually realize that 8% gain, number one, it has to happen every single year, and number two, the funds that you have to come from selling the investments. So if you have a fully paid off mortgage versus renting a house, in most cases, it makes more sense to keep the house and not sell it and start renting. Now let's talk about the trump card that actually makes a lot of this go away, simply because it's much more of an emotional decision, and that is the house is an invisible family member. If you've ever driven through Westchester County, New York, or Connecticut, and I would imagine many cities and towns across the United States, there's something that you see in front of some of these houses, and that is they actually have names. They have a sign out front that has the name of the house. It doesn't matter if it's a big home, a small home, an expensive home, a not expensive home. When you give your house a name or you buy a house with a name, somebody somewhere felt that that house was the invisible family member. On that sign is a name with a bit of an English or European flair, ending in hall, ending in farm, or something of that nature. We remember the expensive ones, of course. We read about those in the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Actor and director Ron Howard owned a home in Conyers Farm in Greenwich, Connecticut. Mark Twain owned Stormfield in Reading. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie owned Chateau Miraval. Some of the names on these homes have been there for over 100 years. Others are brand new, and the new owner decides to give the house a name and put a shingle out front. But one thing is absolutely true. Whether you actually name a house or you don't, most people feel somewhat emotionally attached to their house. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And I would even say I'm a little bit in that category, and I'm a CPA. I think of things in dollars and cents. And it's quite natural. Your home is where you raised your children, where your family pet lived and perhaps passed away. It's where you watch people go from being young to not so young. So, of course, in some regard, it's hard to quantify the value of your home. As some would say, it's priceless with the memories that were created in that home. The final point, and it's really more of a question, and that is, even if you decide to live in your home and not rent a home, is it fit for what you want in the future? Does it have stairs? Are you going to be able to go up and down those stairs in 20 years? Does it have the right number of bedrooms? Does it have one big bedroom for you and a bunch of small bedrooms, almost the size of closets, for the guests that might stop by from time to time, versus having a lot of really big bedrooms that cost a lot to heat? A lot to think about. If you like this video, check out that video. 80% of retirees make this single RMD mistake. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I'll see you in that video right there.
Holy Schmidt!